Now, first, this hour, did you see Four Corners last night? Reporter Steve Kinane exposed how a financial advisor gambled away his clients' savings through online betting platforms. While the advisor has gone to jail, their victims, or his victims, I guess, have been left with nothing.
We found out just before Christmas that our money was gone. That impacted our children. This has impacted our whole family. The mental toll it's taken on us, particularly Nick, it's been really difficult for him.
I don't even know how to explain it. I was just completely shocked. I couldn't speak. I couldn't do anything. You just don't know where to turn. You don't know what to say. You don't even know how to feel. You just break down.
2 years ago, Nick and Amy Mazza lost $250,000 to online bookmakers without having placed a bet.
As I said, the betting companies that took the bets from the financial advisor have not returned a cent. Here's Tasmanian member for Clark, Andrew Wilkie, who was also on the program last night.
Give the call to the member for Clark.
Morning, Speaker. Speaker, I present the Anti-Money Laundering and Counter-Terrorism Financing Amendment.
On 3 separate occasions, Andrew Wilkie has tried to bring legislation to Parliament that would force betting agencies to hand back stolen money.
The bill will ensure that gambling entities are held accountable by preventing them profiting from illegal behaviour in particular.
Each time, it's been rejected.
The fact that at the federal level 3 times the government and the opposition have failed to act suggests to me, well, I think it proves to me, that they continue to run a protection racket for the gambling industry. I think every reasonable Australian would say, if we know who's got the money, that money should be returned to the victims.
Andrew Wilkie there. More than 2 years after a parliamentary inquiry called for sweeping gambling reforms, the federal government is yet to take action. And the regulator that's meant to oversee online bookmakers is based in Darwin, has no full-time staff and meets just once a month. Tasmanian Mark Kempster has lived experience of gambling addiction and now supports others through the Alliance for Gambling Reform. And Mark's very kindly joining me to talk about this. Good morning.
Morning, how you doing?
I'm good. What stood out last night is that the online gambling regulation in Australia is not effective. Have you or people you've worked with had dealings with the regulator?
All the time. I've basically given up on trying to deal with them at the moment. I've had cases that have lasted 12 to 18 months to get results, and then I'm never even allowed to see how the findings are actually being made in some of the cases that I've taken to them of companies contacting me while I'm on self-exclusion registers, which was also shown on the Four Corners story last night. So, and plenty of other people I'm supporting. It's a joke. They're not a regulator. They're in bed with the industry, and they are there to basically look after them at the moment, really, and that's the only role they try and play, is to try and keep these companies going and make sure they see them through any troubles they have.
So, Mark, what do you think needs to happen in regards to regulation?
We need a national regulator, and that was one of the main things in Peter Murphy's report that she offered up 2 years ago. And the work that Peter Murphy did was just amazing. I spoke at her inquiry and gave my evidence on the damage. Obviously I was a gambling addict, and I had to take a lot of responsibility for that. But the amount of issues the industry had caused me across that time, and I gave evidence at the inquiry, and she clearly stated in her report that a national regulator was an absolute must, because she could see the absolute mess that the Northern Territory Racing Commission is, and the way they can't cope with an industry worth $50 billion and have no staff that work full time, and a part-time chairman who's got 9 other jobs trying to run as well. So I don't know how we're still sitting in this situation 2 years down the road where we haven't got a national regulator in place, and it says a lot about what the government, the federal government, obviously think about the issues we're facing with it.
Andrew Wilkie called the regulator a chocolate teapot. Useless, he said.
It's a great analogy, I think. I could probably use some other words which I'm not going to use, but yes.
We talk about pokies a lot here, and there are a huge number of people playing them. What's the situation, though, with online gambling? Do we know if we have high numbers of people gambling online in Tasmania?
I think we're the same as nearly all other states. It's not as bad as pokies. Like pokies is still the number one issue across a lot of Australia, but online gambling is an absolute bullet that's coming extremely fast across the nation. Like it's growing every year to exponential levels. Like we are seeing it more and more in young people, and the companies are really targeting young Australians to try and get them indoctrinated, I suppose, into betting and making them feel like they need to bet on all sport to enjoy it. And we see that with all the advertising we see across all the sports. We've just gone through football finals across both the codes in Australia, and the amount of advertising, like kids were seeing more gambling ads on TV and social media than they were seeing points scored in the games. Like it was just ridiculous. So we are on the crest of this huge wave of the next real problem gambling coming through, and it's going to move away from pokies into online gambling really quickly. And the people I support, like I've got so many people here in Tasmania who reach out to me for help, and I get weekly people or families reaching out to me asking for help. Their sons or daughters who are 18, 19, 20 who have already fallen into gambling addictions because of the lack of regulation in Australia and how much these companies prey on young people, especially with the VIP services we saw last night on Four Corners as well.
Mark, I might ask our audience to join in on this conversation. 1300 222 936 or 0438 922 936. I thought you raised some interesting points there, Mark, about young people and online gambling. I've seen it. I've got some young people, like young adults in my life who are big sports fans and they are betting. And I wasn't doing that when I was 18 or 20, you know.
No, like we weren't brought up in the way. Like I'm 37 and I was probably the first generation that really had to deal with online gambling. Like I remember the apps coming in on my phone when I was 15, 16, 17, I suppose, coming out of school and going into college. And that's when my addiction really took off because of the ease of access you have. Like all kids have phones in their pocket these days. All teenagers have phones, and it's so easy to get around the system at the moment and have a bet if you want to.
And you're absolutely right about the advertising, having just gone through the footy finals. 19 minutes past 7 on 936 ABC Radio Hobart. The episode of Four Corners highlighted that it's been 2 years since that parliamentary inquiry called for gambling reforms. For those who don't know about it or don't remember, can you tell us about the blueprint for reform, please?
So there was three. The main, the two main parts of Peter Murphy's report was a ban of all gambling advertising. That was going to be phased in across 3 years. So that was done to not bring the world down on television companies and sporting codes who unfortunately do rely on they've put themselves in a position where they do rely on a lot of gambling advertising revenue to operate. But bringing it in over a staged 3-year period, a slow phase out, similar to what we did with cigarettes, would really allow them to work their way out of gambling advertising as a main source of revenue. And I think that's completely fair. And Peter Murphy's inquiry put a lot of work into the actual process of how it would look. So, and the national regulator was the other real must in there. Like as we've seen last night in the report, there's no way we can have a group of 7 people in the Northern Territory trying to run a $50 billion regulate a $50 billion industry when they've all got other jobs and they haven't got any full-time staff to actually run the department. When, like you see, again, we saw last night in the report that the UK have 300 or 400 different people in an actual department working on regulation of their industry all the time, and they don't have nearly as many issues as what we do in this country. So they were the two main ones. You can still find Peter Murphy's report online. If you look up online gambling harm and the Peter Murphy inquiry, you'll see the report on there, and it's really detailed in the way she put it all in there, and really well thought out.
So the next steps is, I guess, for people like yourself to keep hassling the federal government to do something about that report?
Well, yeah, like not just myself. Like I do this as much as I can. Like it's obviously a passion for me, given what I went through in my life and my addiction. But it's up to everyone else as well. Like I think we see from all the polls that are done that more than 3/4 of Australians think that gambling advertising needs to go. We don't need it in sport. It's a public health. It's becoming a public health issue basically. And if you're concerned about it as what I am, it's really important to make sure you speak up to your local MPs. If you look up the Alliance of Gambling Reform page online, we have a petition going there with nearly 35,000 signatures at the moment on it to try and present to Parliament to get them to understand that it's a community, the community backlash around this, I suppose. And yeah, we have to keep putting the pressure on, otherwise nothing's going to happen, because unfortunately we have a government pretty beholden to the industry at the moment.
Mark, thanks for taking the time to talk to me today.
No, anytime, mate.
That's Mark Kempster from the Alliance for Gambling Reform. The Four Corners program Losing Streak is on iView now, and if you haven't had a chance to watch it, do. Very, very interesting the way that the online gambling industry is regulated, or as we were just hearing there, not so regulated. We've got a text here coming in. Gambling advertising is everywhere, way too much, and it's damaging our community. Why don't people's lives seem to matter? Thank you for that text. There wasn't a name put with it, but you can join in the conversation anytime, 0438 922 936 or 1300 222 936.